Commissioner Gershenson is absent with notice. Joliet?
Here.
Jackson?
Here.
Lubes?
Here.
Kopendorfer is absent with notice. Woodward?
Here.
Is ex officio. And Nelson?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from March 15th, 2022. If there aren't any changes or corrections, do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Jackson, support by Commissioner Joliet. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Next up, we'll move on to number 5, which is the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, I do want to share that items 9F, G, and H will be removed from our agenda this morning and be taken up during a special LAGO meeting that is anticipated to take place prior to our next board meeting next week with Chairman Woodward.
So I'm just so moved
Oh,
to approve
gotcha.
agenda.
Thank you. All righty. Moved by Chairman Woodward, support by Commissioner Lubes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. Next up, we'll move on to our first round of public comment. As a reminder, individuals will have 3 minutes, and this first public comment will be specific to items on the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to open up public comment. There's individuals who would like to come to the end of the table, state your name, community, and agenda item which you're speaking on. Good morning.
Good morning. Ross Baranko, Novi, Michigan. I see that this body, under the consent agenda, has a resolution to observe April 2022 as Genocide Awareness Month. Genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular country or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Where in Oakland County is genocide taking place? Where in Michigan is genocide taking place? Where is genocide taking place in this country? I can think of none. Can you? Why is this a concern of Oakland County citizens? Ironically, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, on Wednesday, April 15th, 2020, in this month of April, signed the Executive Order 2020-50, ordering the placing of COVID-19 infected patients into nursing homes which housed Michigan's most vulnerable citizens, the elderly with pre-existing conditions. The masks are totally ineffective against an airborne virus pathogen. Hand washing doesn't clear the air of airborne virus pathogens. There were no effective air filtering systems in the closed-loop air conditioning systems, which wafted the virus from COVID patients to the compromised elderly citizens of this state and this country. This occurred on your watch, and you failed. This is tantamount to genocide or genocide on Whitmer's part, and you are complicit for failing to intervene on the citizens' behalf. Therefore, I recommend April to be Genocide Awareness Month rather than Genocide Awareness Month, because it roosts more at home than genocide does, and let it be as a memorial to all those lost souls who died of COVID in nursing homes, which had COVID patients interjected into their homes, and they were totally defenseless. They were forced to die alone without their families present. It's the very least thing you can do. Thank you for listening, and I hope you seriously consider April Genocide Awareness Month, not genocide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Catherine Kennedy from Lake Orion, and I'm pleased to be able to come here. I've got so many new friends as a result of this commission, I have to admit. So I actually was one of those seniors that maybe was a little bit too much in my home from this whole situation. So I'm glad to see that the items F, G, and H are being removed. I'm really kind of perplexed. Last year, we kept having a lot of 15% salary increases, even though 25% of our businesses no longer existed as of the middle of the year. And I see you want to appoint a permanent staffing for creating a Chief Employee and Labor Relations Officer classification position. Haven't we learned we can't keep adding positions? I was offended the diversity officer gets $143,000. Brooks used to get paid $201. I don't even know what a diversity officer does. It hasn't even been defined. So it's rather offensive because I understand it takes a lot of individual citizens paying their taxes to create one position at a government level. Doesn't matter which government. Okay, and then we want to appoint a regional convention facility authority. That's very concerning, especially since when I went to Auburn Hills, Meyer, the bus that they want to approve actually goes all the way to the riverfront. And then yesterday, when I downloaded the packet so I could thoroughly review and have an understanding of what I'm actually talking about here, I see item M got reviewed or added. It wasn't there at noon yesterday. So that's the Parks and Recreation, other action for seasonal employee salary and incentive changes at Oakland County Parks. I have no clue why this board finds it acceptable to give citizens 18 hours notice, and if you're like me, I download it and actually review it and read it. So you can't review this nonsense. This is a 3-page, well, I guess only 2 pages. The other is just comments how to contact you, but you can't go through all this data reasonably in 18 hours. And if you work, like most citizens do, this is clearly offensive. So I would ask that you also remove item M in its entirety because it was not given sufficient time for anybody to review. I doubt even the commissioners had a chance to review it, but maybe you're in a different system, so maybe you get things earlier than we do. But because it's public money, why isn't it given to us far enough in advance to be making reasonable, thoughtful decisions for the benefit of the citizens of this county? So I would ask that you stop looking at green solutions, which create more staffing positions, and focus on land conservation. In fact, I actually know entirely how to put it together. My brother has done 2 land conservancies himself, and he's willing to help. So please rethink this entire strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Good morning.
Good morning, Tasha Shergan from Clarkston. This is in regards to item 9I. This is a request to add a new position of Chief Employee and Labor Relations Officer. Currently, labor relations are handled by 2 full-time employees. Leadership's been determined that there's a need to have a position with a legal background to interpret labor contracts and reduce line item legal service expenditures. Additionally, this position will act as the county's chief negotiator in collective bargaining, oversee investigations, and collaborate with corporate counsel to develop and represent departments in matters brought before the Personal Appeal Board.
Thank you, Tasha. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee during this first round of public comment in regards to items on our agenda this morning? Alrighty, seeing none, I will close our first public comment. Next up, we'll move on to communications. We've got one item under communications. A, communications appointments, the second quarter report. Is there any questions in regards to this communication item? Is it voice vote? All right. Seeing that there's no questions, do we have a motion to receive and file this communication item? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Jackson. So voice vote, Pam. Prompt the vote, please.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Communications has been filed. Next up, we'll move on to our we'll move on to our consent agenda. We've got 3 items under the consent agenda. Item A, proclamation proclaiming April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day in Oakland County. Item B, recognizing April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day in Oakland County. And item C, observing April 2022 as Genocide Awareness Month in Oakland County. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Jackson. Chairman?
Yeah, I mean, since it was mentioned in public comment, I want to, let me speak specifically, not just speak to all of them, but I mean specifically to the Genocide Awareness Month. This is something that I'm very proud in this county, regardless of the makeup of the governing body, the executive office, and elected officials, that this county has come together to not only recognize Genocide Awareness Month, but are intentional about making certain that we remember, that we educate in order not to ensure that it doesn't happen again. The terrible tragedies to the Jewish people, to Armenians, to Rwandans, I mean, the list goes on, and these horrific acts, and it is important for governing bodies to come up and speak, not only to call in reference to these things and recognize them as genocide, but learn from them and make sure that future generations and our youngest people, but also, I mean, remind those who probably should know more about it. We have incredible resources here in Oakland County. The Holocaust Museum, I mean, raises up to like one of the highest pillar. But we have, I mean, smaller institutions that, I mean, that do this, and I think this is very appropriate, and I'm glad to see that our entire board is, I mean, coming together to support it. As it relates to the other amendments in April being, I mean, Earth Day, and I mean, and also holding Arbor Day, I wanted to let the committee know that I've reached out to, I mean, Aaron Cattell, our a sustainability officer here in Oakland County, who's going to be bringing forth a report of the sustainability audit and laying out some plans of implementation of that effort at our next board meeting. So that will be our April meeting. So stay tuned and look for that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, is there any further discussion on consent agenda items? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to our regular agenda. Our first item is item A, contract amendment number 3 with the Oakland Literacy Council for contract extension and change of scope for adult literacy projects. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Lubes, and I believe we've got Lisa here with us this morning. So welcome, Lisa.
And then there was some slides
Excellent.
at some point. It's all right.
They're there.
Oh, okay, now they're there. Okay. It's like, I don't know what's going on behind me. Well, happy Math Awareness Month. It's also Math Awareness Month. How exciting for that. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come before you on behalf of this amazing organization that is a critical part of our workforce infrastructure. My name is Lisa Macheski, and I'm a Birmingham resident and a lifelong Oakland County resident, and I've been the executive director of the Oakland Literacy Council for 6 years. With me today is our board chair, John Almstead, that some people might know around here. He's the former manager at Oakland County Workforce Development. And Ellen Lipton is one of our newest board members, who also is on the State Board of Education. We also have Sue Klunk, who is a staff member for communications, and we also have a special guest, Evelyn Briggs, who is a learner with our organization, and I will be turning it over to her after my brief remarks. Oakland Literacy Council has been a mainstay of Oakland County since 1984, when volunteer tutors first came together to work with adults who have low reading skills. Since that time, thousands of Oakland County adults have built confidence in one-on-one relationship with a tutor, learning to read and speak English. In 2020, we began offering digital literacy services so that individuals can build the technology skills needed for everyday tasks, even doctor's appointments, all these new things that you could even go to a Board of Commissioners meeting virtually now. And in 2001, we launched our basic math program, which we're very proud of. Over the past couple of years, we've also made significant investments in student support so that students can overcome significant barriers to learning that as many juggle difficult personal lives, which include mental illness, homelessness, childcare, transportation, and multiple low-wage jobs. Our students and tutors amaze me every day. Yesterday, I was told of a student who walked 2 miles in the snow to get to his lesson at the Southfield Library. He even arrived early before the library opened. He was so eager to learn. He met a well-trained tutor who used a new curriculum designed for those with reading disabilities. I'm here to tell you, many of our students would not succeed without this personalized approach. Your investment in our organization is critical. This investment leads to higher wages for Oakland County residents as they're able to use their newfound skills in the workplace. Your investment leads to better outcomes for the K-12 children of our learners. And your investment makes our community stronger as learners come out from the shadows to take their rightful place in our institutions and neighborhoods. I would like to showcase some of our learners. This is why we need the slide. We have Feroza, who is a new immigrant from Afghanistan here in our community. She's a mother of 2. She had no English skills and cannot read and write in her native language even. So she had no education while in Afghanistan. She's meeting at Rama with an experienced tutor, which also eliminates the transportation barrier as she can walk. And she is enthusiastic and learning fast. And then we have Ray from Waterford. This is the next one. He's a veteran. He's recently widowed. Like many of our older ABE students, he relied on his spouse to do many of the daily tasks. And now he needs more skills for independence. He can now drive and read where he is going, not just memorize where to turn. He's using the reading disability curriculum in our office, and we're thrilled to listen to how much how much more he is reading after 1 year. And then we have Malik from Hazel Park. She is a Syrian immigrant and has used our laptop services, and she was sworn in as a U.S. citizen just 1 week ago, so we're very proud of her. And then we have Daewon, who's from Lake Orion. He's an immigrant from South Korea. His tutor was his first friend here in the USA, and he shared his idea to open a restaurant. And one of the things that they worked on was going over regulations, what it meant to open a restaurant, and all the things he needed in order to get his different certifications and setting up his business. And now he's the proud owner of Sushi Yubai in Lake Orion. So good place to go. And then we have Evelyn. And Evelyn lost her daughter to COVID-19 and now is raising her 2 grandchildren, Nevia and Jaden. And her goal is to get a GED. How can I tell them it's important to get an education, to get their diploma when I don't have mine? So she was inspired to do that. She had never used a computer before, but now she has her lessons all virtually. Our digital literacy coordinator helped her get the Comcast Essentials program. And she has advanced in her reading, and she's working on her math now. Next slide. There's only 2. I promise. And we really see ourselves as a critical piece with the Oakland 80 effort because we help people get into that space where they can get those certifications. We have Padma, who's from Troy. She earned her CDA certificate and is now a preschool teaching assistant in Troy schools. And then we have Cornelius. And you can't really tell from this picture, but he's in his car. Sometimes he takes his lessons in his car because he's juggling 2 jobs and 2 kids. He never went to school. He learned on Sesame Street as his only educational source. He is also working with the Barton curriculum and has secured a laptop and a hotspot through us. He has made EFL gains in reading and is now starting in math. And then we have Hugh Jung from Rochester Hills. She visited the cosmetology school with her tutor, and now she's a certified nail technician with aspirations to own her own salon. And then we have Ascension from Troy. She's a graduate just this year. She just graduated real soon. She is a process engineer in Mexico, but she's been working at Marshall's to gain her English skills. But now she feels ready to start looking for a job using her considerable skills. And we just connected her with the Troy, Michigan Works office, and she gained her graduation. We're going to be excited to celebrate her. There's many, many other similar stories about Shanita, who works at a local hospital and doesn't want to work in janitorial forever, and she's turned down records jobs because she doesn't have the reading skills. She wants to be a CNA and take care of older people, like those who care for her grandmother. And we had a student from our workplace small group setting who now works for the unemployment agency for the state of Michigan because they need those bilingual skills. And there's also stories that are yet to be. Yesterday we had a 37-year-old male from Southfield apply to our program. In his application he wrote, "I want to be able to read anything and be able to read good enough to get a good job." Please join me, my amazing staff, and over 200 volunteer tutors who work each week to make true everyone has a right to literacy. Now I'd like to turn it over to Evelyn to share her story. So come on, Evelyn, this will be great for you. She is a little nervous. I will. Great. We are so proud of her.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing today?
Doing fine. How about yourself?
That's wonderful, wonderful. God is good, I'm telling you. I'm here to speak briefly on behalf of Oakland Literacy and what it has done for me, myself, and my grandkids. As you heard, my daughter did pass from COVID, and now I'm raising my grandkids. I do not have my high school diploma. I did go to school. I did pass to the 12th grade. But as normal life, we get hard-headed, we think we know everything, so far, so on. But anyway, long story short, I got pregnant, got married, all that, done that, whatever. So now it's all about me taking care of myself and my grandkids. Okay, as I stated on the paper, I want to be a good example for them. I don't want to have to tell them, you really need to get that piece of paper. Actually, I have told them several times, you don't know what that paper means. That's your lifeline, literally. That's going to tell you how much you make on a job. That's going to tell you how far you can go with just that one piece of paper. And I want to make sure that in order for me to teach you, I want to be the one, make sure I have it done. I'm a little nervous, so you excuse me, okay? The best example I know to be towards my grandchildren is to actually teach them, to show them. And this is what I'm here for today, to show them that it's real. God has blessed me to come through stage 2 breast cancer in 2019. I'm now in remission, and my next goal was to get my high school diploma. If I can strive and show my grandchildren how to strive for the bigger things in life, I want to show them, not just show. If I can do it, you can do it. You understand what I'm saying? And this is why I'm here today. And I appreciate Oakland Literacy with everything that's inside of me. I did go to a couple other places. It did not work. I didn't hear from them. So by incident, I called these Oakland Literacy, and I heard from them the very next day. And to God be the glory. It's been on and popping ever since. Okay, so everything has been wonderful. They brought me a laptop. I'm learning how to play with their thing. I'm gonna be honest with you, back in the day, we didn't have no laptops. So I'm 61 years old. I'm gonna be 62 this year. I ain't know nothing about no laptop. I might peck, but you know, that's how they go. But it's getting better. And then my grandkids are teaching me about this and that and the other. So it's a wonderful thing. When they're study back when they had the in-school thing, you know, the COVID thing, they had closed the schools up and all of that. Well, when they studied, I was studying. And it was just wonderful, all three of us in one place doing our thing. And it was just awesome. I was just as proud of them as they were of me to see us do it together. And that's what this program has done for us, my two grandkids up there. And I know their mom would be very proud. So I just appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the school. And I'll tell you, my tutor, she's part of the family. I'm serious. Leslie, oh my God, she's just awesome. Everybody in the program has been totally awesome, and I just appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate what they're instilling, not only in myself, but my grandchildren as well. You can do whatever you set your mind to do, and we have to continue to teach that and never let that fall towards our children, our grandchildren. They always have to know they can succeed. There's no way. It's too much out here for you not to be able to succeed. You understand what I'm saying? So that's my thing, and that's why I'm here today, to tell you guys, hey, life is good. It's out there, and I want them to know that you can do it. And that's what this program is teaching. I'm able to teach them as they're teaching me that you can. That's life. Okay? All right, now I'm nervous enough. Okay.
Are there any questions? Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Jackson.
I was very excited to see that there's a numeracy component to this, and so you're also teaching basic math skills and financial literacy, balance a checkbook, all of that kind of stuff.
We're basic math skills, right? And one of the things that we work with our tutors on is to find real practical uses. One of the things that adults learn better if there's real life examples and things like that. So yes, that would be included in the individualized curriculum, but there's not necessarily a financial literacy component.
I see.
But yes,
Okay.
it's a part of, math is.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Evelyn again. My very best friend is raising 3 of her grandchildren. Her son jumped off that water tower to his death. And I just want to say I know your struggle. And I'm very proud that you shared your story with us, because, you know, sometimes people see grandparents raising grandchildren and they don't know the backstory. And I also really offer my condolences for you losing your daughter to COVID. I've lost so many people myself. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioners, Commissioner Joliet.
I fully support this program. My mom used to tutor in Macomb County for the Literacy Project, and there is such a need for this. How do you advertise? How do you recruit, get out there that these services are available?
That's a good question, right? It's so hard because everybody comes at it from different questions. So we've been really intentionally making sure that we're investing resources in the southern part of the county too, because we know that that's a big part of it. We know that word of mouth is always a good, our current students are the best ambassadors for our other things. We've also been very intentionally working in the city of Pontiac, building relationships. The United Way funded us for our work in Pontiac, which they've decided that they no longer value, so that's a part of it. So it's a constant struggle. We're always trying to do our best to do that, but it takes more resources to do that. But we have specific resources for the southern part of the county and the city of Pontiac.
Okay, all right, thank you. And my condolences to you also. You did a wonderful job.
Didn't she do great?
Yes.
I was very nervous. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, it's on tape,
tell.
so we can make a commercial. Bring it home to your grandkids.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys. I really do. It's wonderful. thank you for the time and patience that you put forth just to give me here. It's very important. It's nice to know that people are listening. It's real. I appreciate that.
Chairman Woodward, followed by Commissioner Loops.
I'd like Commissioner Lubes go first.
Oh, thank you. I attend church in Troy, and some of the members of our church who are retired school teachers tutor for Oakland literacy, and the people they tutor, they do become friends with, and it's nice to see. And the volunteers at church do talk about Oakland literacy at church.
Yeah, we really strive to be very relationship driven because we know that so many people have had bad experiences in their educational environment, and that relationship is what it makes them build confidence. I mean, I think that one of the most important things that our tutor does is giving people confidence to learn.
Mm-hmm. It does, yes, thank you. And Evelyn, I want to say some of your life events mirror my life events that I don't know if anybody knows, but I didn't go to college. I did graduate from high school. I had 5 children. When my second child was in his 3rd year of college, he said to me, well, I think you just need a couple of classes to get your degree, because I had talked up college so much. I never went to college. My second child paid for my first college class, and we went to class together. So you may experience that also when those boys grow up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Loops. Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I love like the connection, because I completely agree that like, literacy is absolutely critical for our achieving our Oakland 80 goals that we've set up for the end of the decade. Literacy is so core. It is the thing that is the easiest to be pushed aside in the K-12 experience because of a lot of other demands, and yet it's the foundation that student success is completely built on. And so I'm just so glad that an organization like this, we're very fortunate to have in Oakland County. And you certainly have leadership of your board that knows a little thing or two about workforce development, so I hear. What is the partnership with our Oakland County workforce development like currently? I mean, are there referrals coming through workforce development? And I guess what other opportunities exist there? I mean, whether we can use those facilities to be places if tutoring needs to happen off-site from a home or something else. Can you talk a little bit about that, or even what's strategically on the horizon the partnership with workforce development can be?
I look at workforce development in the Michigan Works offices here in Oakland County as a relationship by choice, even though, because we are WEO funded through the federal government, which is part of our, part of our state funding, which we actually don't get state funding because nonprofit literacy organizations receive no state funding, but we do get some pass-through federal funding with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which requires us to have relationships with our one-stop shop system. We would anyways, because we have this wonderful relationship with all of the 5 offices. They refer people to us quite frequently. We also assist with testing, because one of the things that they need testing for is the CASAS test, and we are able to do it in person in a more convenient way for some people, especially during COVID when the offices were shut down. We were able to provide some testing for people who didn't have the computers set up in order to take the test. As Asuncion, we just referred her back, so it's a reciprocal relationship. We go back. But one of the things that I really think is important as we talk about Oakland 80 is there's a pool of people that aren't quite ready to take that next step, the pre-apprenticeship kinds of things, if you will. You know, they need those math skills and those reading skills to be up to a level where they can get those certificates and things like that. So I think there is a space to really put some effort into that so that people can start to be ready to take that next step, so that they can go to OCC. Even those that have high school diplomas, we know don't always have the skills. And we're seeing more of that as you might imagine what happened under COVID the past couple of years. People were, they couldn't measure skills as well. I know from my own high school experience, it's not the same. But we know that we can build those skills so that they can go into training programs, and we're working with closely with the Pontiac office to do an integrated education and training program for a CNA program for our immigrant community, and trying to make sure that we're doing those English language skills at the same time that they do training skills. So I think there's lots of opportunities for those types of partnerships too.
Great. And then in the curriculum, I mean, I see Barton here. Is that, and that's the curriculum for the reading and spelling literacy?
It's for those with reading disabilities.
Okay.
We also use intensively Burlington English for our English language learners. It's an online program that people can work on independently, but also gives lessons for tutors to help select with, and they work extensively with that, especially in the virtual environment. That was important. We also have a large selection in our lending library for tutors that are all nationally recognized materials. One of the things that we really pride ourselves in is trying to make sure we're meeting the learner goals, whatever those learner goals might be, and matching the different resources that we have with that. So we are also encouraging all our adult basic education students and our ESL students to do online learning in addition as a supplement to our one-on-one tutoring, because we know that 100 hours really starts to make the difference. And in the tutoring relationship, it's hard to get 100 hours in a year. So we really are trying to focus more and more on instructional time as we go on.
What is the math curriculum that you use?
So math curriculum, we have a PhD in math who's running our math program. We snabbed him from Oakland University. He was really, taught those lowest level classes. And we are using Breakthrough the Math as one of the curriculums, but also really kind of custom designing things, because one of the things adults have that kids don't necessarily have is like they have these holes, like they're just missing like one or two things, and they've learned things beyond that, but never quite got that whole piece. I don't know if I'm describing that well. And so he's able to really, our testing identifies some of those pieces and really focuses a little bit on that. He was talking to me yesterday around fractions and ratios, and they can't reduce a fraction, and then they're all of a sudden the tutor was trying to do X, doing the ratios with an X. He's like, no, that's like you're jumping from 3rd grade to 9th grade. So he's really overseeing a lot of that and providing that support to tutors, training them, and really giving those individualized lessons. And building things like how to find how much carpet you need in a room, so those practical skills that I think are very important for an adult.
Great. 2 more questions. Partnership with libraries. I mean, it just seems that there's a natural intersection.
And our libraries have been fabulous. I mean, we would not be where we are today without our libraries here in Oakland County. Prior to the pandemic, almost all of our tutors were meeting in local libraries. Obviously, that's changed a little bit, but they've been great. Our tutor coordinator was just presenting to a local library yesterday, trying to recruit more tutors and things like that too. So they've been places for instruction, they've been places for referrals, they've been places that are just generally supportive of our literacy efforts.
Great. And then lastly, I just want to, from the funding aspect, obviously, we're very proud to help support in the funding. You said that is most of your funding federal pass-through?
No, not at all. So we receive about $84,000 from federal pass-through funding. We receive about 1/3 of it from individual giving with the lovely donors here, and we've got some foundation funding. We did have some funding from the United Way at $90,000 that funded our Pontiac initiative, but that's no longer part of the budget. So there's definitely some holes, but we really have a strong mix of funding sources. But there's definitely a need to sustain this new level of growth over the past couple of years with digital literacy and with the math, that we've really made some huge strides.
Great. Keep up the great work. Fantastic.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo my colleagues and again, thank you, Evelyn, for sharing your story. It's truly inspiring, and I encourage you to continue telling your story. So thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Lisa, John, Ellen, and Sue for attending today. Building strong, literate communities is so important. It's critical. And I most certainly will be supporting an increase in expanding our literacy services. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And thank you for having this time allotted for us to tell our story.
Absolutely. Commissioners, any other questions, comments? Alrighty. Seeing none, roll call, please. Prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Before we move on to our next regular agenda item, do we have a motion to receive and file this PowerPoint presentation? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Lubes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to our second item under the regular agenda, which is item B, Clerk Register of Deeds, grant acceptance with the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs for the 2022 Survey and Remonumentation Grant. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Jackson. Good morning, Madam Clerk and Mr. Clerk.
Fred Miller, deputy, is my deputy. And what I'm going to say, a tough act to follow. I'm glad I don't have a big ask here. What a great program. When I've read to, I'm sorry, I'm going off subject for a minute, but that was just so moving. And whenever March is reading month and I've read to younger kids, I always tell them that reading is a superpower. And, because then they can read a menu themselves. They don't have to rely on somebody else. They can see a do not enter sign. So what a great program. Anyway, our program. If you remember a few months ago, we were in front of you asking if we could apply for the grant, which we've been doing for decades. This is us really getting money back for a remonumentation program. So obviously, we're just now saying, can we accept the money that you've already said we could apply for? So it's really simple.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? Alrighty. Seeing none, prompt the vote, please.
Woodward? Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move on to item number C, Parks and Recreation, grant acceptance with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for the fiscal year 2022 Off-Road Vehicle Trail Improvement Fund. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Joliet. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is a grant from the DNR's ORV Trail Improvement Fund for the second portion of the parking lot construction project out at Hollyoaks ORV Park. And if it looks familiar, then they actually awarded us the exact same grant last year for the first half of the parking lot. So this grant will let us complete that work, which our folks are rear and it's essentially allowing us to complete the berm along Dixie Highway, which will help with our sound and dust control, fix some drainage issues, and just get that parking lot all ready to go for the upcoming season. So this is a fully grant-funded project.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. Commissioners, questions, comments in regards to this agenda item? Alrighty, seeing none, prompt the vote, please.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Thank you for joining us, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll move on to item number D, Human Resources, Other Action Extension of Certified Eligibility List through October 2022. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Joliet. Thank you. I believe we've got Valerie Jefferson here with us. Good morning, Valerie.
Good morning, everyone.
Valerie, can you just give us a little summary of this agenda item before us this morning?
Yes, the sheriff's department requires kind of an extensive background check for their new hires. So what happens is our eligibility list is good for 6 months. So we request that it be extended for the full year so that when the sheriff's department is in the process of a background check, the list doesn't expire, because the list expires. They can't hire off an expired list. So if the list is extended, then that list will be extended while that they're in the background process.
Excellent. And Valerie, how long is this extension? Is it 6 months?
Yes, it's 6 months, and then at the 6 month period, which is now, I asked for it to be extended for the full year.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Loops.
How long is an average background check? How many months does it take?
From my understanding, the average background check, from what I've been told from the sheriff's department, is about 6 weeks.
Yeah, nice. Do we have somebody who's dedicated to that, or is it somebody who does that in between their regular job?
Yes, I was told there's about 13 officers that does this along with their job as well. So they're a deputy too. They're also doing background checks as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, commissioners? All righty. Seeing none, roll call, please. Prompt the vote. Sorry.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Thank you for joining us, Valerie.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Next up, we've got item number E of our regular agenda, Human Resources, resolution approving a second annual leave buyback option under Merit Rule 23. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loop, support by Commissioner Jackson. Good morning, April.
Good morning. I just wanted to bring a resolution to the board for request a second buyback, and I'll explain what that is. So right now, one of our merit rules allows for employees who have 60 hours or more of PTO time, which is your paid time off bank, that you are able to take 1 week of vacation and cash that out throughout the year as long as you have 60 hours or more. We typically do that in August. However, this year we are asking for 2 buybacks for a couple of reasons. One is that through the months of October through February, we saw a pretty intensive absenteeism rate due to COVID. People were either quarantining or they were sick themselves, or had to, work with, have people at their house that are also sick. And so what happened is that there were so many people who had to cover for all of those shifts as well. So not only were they not able to take their own time off, then they were also working significant amounts of overtime. When you combine that with people who are losing their time, you have supervisors and employees who are trying to support each other to not lose their time. So if they go over a certain amount that they're allowed to keep, they actually lose the time, kind of falls off their banks, if you will, which is why the buyback was instituted some time ago. And so now what's happening is supervisors are trying to help and support their employees by not losing their time, and so they're having to take like a Friday off or a Wednesday off just to try to keep from losing their time, and it's causing, again, some of those challenges as it relates to staffing. So I am requesting that we allow 2 buybacks this year for fiscal year 2022, and that will come out of Fringe Benefit Fund. It's already part of what we call our liabilities in that fund, so it's just a transfer of the money from the liability into an expenditure. So there's no change as it relates to a funding mechanism or anything like that. So that is our request. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments in regards to this agenda item? Commissioner Joliet.
I completely understand the staffing issue. So this is for this year only though, correct? This one? Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Seeing no further questions, prompt the vote, please.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to our next item, which is item F, Human Resources Staffing Modification to create a Chief Employee and Labor Relations. Oh, am I?
It got renumbered to this one.
Is it F?
These got removed.
Wouldn't it be F?
It is now. It is now.
Did I say it incorrectly?
I have F.
Is that the right one? We're-
I have F on mine.
We're moving to the position, the new position.
Well, F, G, and H right now is removed.
So, point of clarification, at the onset of, before approving the agenda, I had removed items F, G, 9, F, G, and H, and that'll be postponed to a special LAGO meeting next week. So I do believe with the refreshing and updating of our current agenda, item F should be human resources, staffing modification to create a chief employee and labor relations officer, classification and position. Are we all on the same page?
Yes.
Excellent. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Jackson. And again, welcome, Deputy Lynch.
Thank you. So for those that don't know, not only am I currently a deputy county executive, I've been acting HR director for quite some time. Also, as I work through that role, trying to understand some of the needs of the department. So one of our most heaviest departments, one that is most complex is our labor relations department, which covers not only labor CBAs or collective bargaining agreements, but also employee matters. So any type of, whether you're union or non-union, any kind of complaint or any issue that you have comes into that department. So over the last year, we've really been monitoring what it is that we need in our overall HR department, and we've really looked at. And so what? Sorry, thank you. So what we've been really focused on is what is it that we really need in some of our divisions, and so taking a look at our labor relations need, our issues our employees are bringing towards are much more complex now, just due to just the changing environments and things of that nature, as well as more union activity, more complaints, just more folks trying to employees trying to find their place in our organization. And so as I looked at what our needs were, we decided that we had a position open in that unit as a more of a specialist, more boots on the ground. But in talking to my team there and some of the experiences we've had, we feel that we'd be best, more benefited by having a person in that department that has some labor law experience, then can help with negotiating union contracts and support the director with that, but then also help manage some of the complaints that we might get, especially as they come into the more complex nature. And so with that request, we are requesting to eliminate a full-time position and a part-time position, also as well as we'll decrease some of the line item in the legal services, which has been steadily decreasing over time anyway. And I think that having somebody with the legal background in employment law will also lower the cost for some legal services that we may need in more specifically to human resources matters.
Thank you, April. What will this officer do when they're not negotiating contracts? From my understanding, we go through periods of opening contracts, which doesn't happen every single year.
Yeah, right.
So what will this individual be doing when they aren't working actively with labor contracts?
Sure. So the labor contracts are, as you noted, more or less frequent, but what is more frequent and what is consistent are grievances, managing the actual collective bargaining agreements. This person would also be a direct conduit to addressing any merit rule issues, helping with policy creation. We have also, we have 5,000 employees, right? So we have a lot of investigations that happen, a lot of complaints that are filed. We'll help make sure that we are following labor law as well as our collective bargaining agreements, and helping support any type of other investigation, whether it be EOC complaints, violation of FMLA law. They will support and help the team with ADA requests and things of that nature. So we get a lot that comes into labor relations for 5,000 people, and we only have 2 people that are in that department right now.
Excellent. And what would you say, and again, I know this can fluctuate a little bit, especially in more recent times where I know that there's an increase of individuals, employees joining the union. Over the past couple of years, what would you say is the average number of grievances?
I don't have that in front of me, so a lot of them don't even get to grievances because we mediate before it gets there. So I would say that when it comes down to investigations, though, they have at least 5 or 6 going on at one time.
So would this chief officer be a part of mediation then?
Yeah, they would help.
To go to grievances?
Yes, they would help support the union representatives as well as help convene the departments, and we talk through it, things of that nature, to make sure that again, that we all understand the scope of the issue and work through that.
And lastly, were there any conversations in regards to potentially taking a look at this specific position as a contract position, just given, I mean, I definitely have heard you share that there is a potential for an increase in grievances, but in light of this specific position being geared more towards labor contract negotiations and knowing that that doesn't happen frequently, was there any consideration of taking a look at having a contract employee?
Well, that's what we use our legal services for when we need those different level of experience in the legal area. So this person is actually not only are to address complaints or issues, but help us prevent them. So they would be more of a strategic partner as it relates to policies, procedures, things that we do, heading things off of the past, noticing a pattern of maybe something in a particular department and help support that. So the actual chief negotiator piece of that is actually the least of what I would see them doing, because the HR director or myself in this role would still continue to do some chief negotiating, but we do have multiple unions on that side too. So I know it's called employee and labor relations. So the labor piece, which we call our contracts or our union pieces, is still only piece of the work, whereas the bulk of it is that day-to-day operations of that department. And again, honestly, I look at this position as more a preventative measure to help make sure that we have correct policies in place and that we are following them, and making sure that when we have investigations, that we take a look at those and really see if there was anything that could have prevented that, or what actions we could take for that.
In April, who addresses these concerns that you've shared currently?
Right now, me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so also as we were looking for HR directors, we're having a hard time finding people that have either if they have labor experience but they don't have any other HR experience, or they have a ton of experience in what I call the normal HR process, but they don't have labor relations experience. So by having this position, this may help us open up the door to a little bit more flexibility in who we would hire in as an HR director.
Excellent. Thank you. Chairman Woodward?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, I think it's important to point out the way the pay for this new position is the elimination of two other positions and a reduction in the legal line item, because this person will be able to help offset something. So it won't impair your ability to do your things. And so there's like no additional cost. This is a restructuring of a department to create this role to do what you exactly said. The strategic partner, hopefully to mitigate problems before they become problems, identify trends to address so that they don't become problems, as well as providing all the support to our in the labor relations space. So, I mean, with that, the fact that this is not a new, it's a new position, but it's a position that's created by the elimination of others and a reduction in another line item to pay for what the new position would be. And so I think with that, I'm supportive. I think this is, April's been, Deputy Lynch has been doing the job of 3 people, and so I think this is appropriate. At this time to have someone in the strategic role to help support the employee labor relations in the county, and cost neutral to the budget.
Commissioner Jackson, followed by Commissioner Lubes.
Quickly, just to add on to what Chair Woodward just mentioned, this position replaces an unfilled HR analyst labor relations position. The 2 other individuals that are currently working, is that their position?
They're still there. No, they won't.
Are they analysts? The 2 that are there?
Yeah. One is an analyst and one is a manager.
Okay, so would this person oversee those individuals? Yes. Okay. Because it really didn't say that in the description.
Oh, sorry, yes.
All right,
yes,
okay, thank you.
They'll oversee that department.
Excellent. Commissioners, any other, Commissioner Lubes?
Is this a position that you'll post, or do you have somebody in mind for the position?
I will post for it.
Thank you.
To kind of piggyback off of Commissioner Lubes, will this be posted internally or externally?
Both.
Both. Excellent. Nice. Commissioner Joliet?
That was my question, was in regards to the interview process and how they will be
Yeah,
found.
it will be posted. I don't have. I had somebody in mind, they would have had them in here already, but no. Yeah, it'll be posted out.
Okay.
Open and
I-
competitive, if that makes sense.
Okay. I completely see the need for this, just with all of the contracts that have come through and all the supplementals and everything else. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other further discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Joliet,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Nelson,
No.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 1 nay.
4 yea, 1 nay, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to the next item, which is item G, Human Resources Policy Adopting a Hybrid Work Policy. And again, welcome Deputy Lynch. Or do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Loops.
Before you, you have a request to approve a policy regarding the hybrid working. As you know, many of you know, we established when we had to move from COVID back to home, we started the process of having to work from home. We eventually, once we were able to come back to the office, maintained a hybrid approach and have found that to work out very well for many of our employees. Also, what we are finding, as you've heard in the news, that this is becoming a norm for most places of work, of having that option. And so as we were trying to review what this would look like and see how this works, we feel at this time that it does make sense to continue allowing those employees that meet those minimum requirements to be able to work from home when possible. We're not really changing much other than, as we have before, it will be a decision to be made by each department director and how that fits in their workload and making sure that services are properly delivered to our residents. We are not recommending or encouraging any time of full-time at home. We're looking at more of a hybrid, which seems to be pretty typical, which is about, maintaining it no less than 50% within the office. What you have before here, though, is the policy that would be attached to it. Right now, there is no policy. And what we really wanted to take a look at was, how does this work as we move forward? And so you'll see things in here specifically dedicated to risk management, IT issues, anything that relates to just clarification. One of the things that's interesting about hybrid work models throughout the country is that while you might have two people in the same classification, not everybody works well in a hybrid or is able to work in that environment and may not be able to work from home. And then as well as just some classifications just aren't able to work from home. Like if you can't do your work and you have to be there to tactilely touch it, you can't be there. And so it also talks in here about making sure that there's communication between department directors and supervisors with their employees, having a managed schedule where it makes sense so that people have clear expectations. A lot of questions that we do get is how do you monitor people's performance while they're at home? It's the same way you do here in the office. There's an expectation that you know and understand how your workflow is going, whether you're in a cubicle or whether you're at home. It's the same. It should be the same process. And again, you'll have some departments who will embrace this model. Others, it maybe doesn't work for them, and that's okay as well. So we're just allowing the flexibility for departments to make that decision, but also with parameters so that people know and understand what that looks like. Just for point of reference, Wayne County, Macomb County, and Kent County are also going to maintain a hybrid work policy as well. So they'll continue on in that realm as well. So we are always going to be paying attention and making sure that still works. And again, really relying on our department directors and division leaders to make sure that they're on top of that work performance with their employees. I will also say that one of the key components to this is that I think most of us who have been in the hiring process have not experienced an interview that has not asked if we're going to continue or allow for remote work. I know anecdotally, I can tell you that we have had 2 positions that we have tried to hire that we could not provide, was not going to be a regular ability to do remote, and we lost 2 candidates because of that. So it is, when I talk to most of our department directors who are in an administrative function, have experienced the same thing. that right now that is a huge hiring plus, if that makes sense.
Thank you, April. Excuse me. Thank you, April. One of the questions I do have, I know that you mentioned that that you're within this policy, you're maintaining no less than 50% out of the office. I can't find that within the policy. What I do see is that employees work 1 or more days each work week. So when I read that, I read it as the expectation is I potentially could work remotely for 1 day out of a 5-day work week, yet you had shared that 50%. Can you?
That's a recommendation that we've just made to our department directors, but they have to at least come into the office. So most people are following 50%. It works best for them.
But as it stands within this policy, is it safe to say that it is up to the discretion of the department? So they
It is,
could work,
but it is hybrid, so they do have to come into the office at least 1 day a week.
so it's 1 day, so it's not 50% though?
No, that's our recommendation. Most of our departments are doing that.
Okay, excellent. And then I know too, we've had some conversations in regards to, let's potentially say this work policy is adopted. Do departments have, I love the fact that departments get to choose how they would like to adopt this as it fits their needs within the department. And let's face it, we've got a variety of different dynamic and diverse departments here. So I do love the fact that departments get to choose how to incorporate this hybrid work policy within their departments. With that being said, there doesn't seem to be a timeline for departments opting in or adopting this hybrid work policy. Is that fair to say? So can you talk a little bit about, so can a department decide 8 months from now that they want to adopt a hybrid work policy?
Yes.
And then how does that fit in with the strategic planning and KPIs and measuring performance when departments can pick and choose when they want to opt in to a hybrid model? So where's the accountability piece there, and how do we track that, given that it's an open opportunity at any time?
So you would track it as you are now. So whether they're working at their desk or at a cubicle or at home, it's the responsibility of the department director to continue, and division leaders to continue to monitor their performance of their employees. So there really is no shift or change in that. It really has no, again, where they do their work is really between the department director or the division head or their supervisor, making sure that how they're measuring performance now in the office would be the same at home. They may have, each department head or division leader may have a different way of monitoring that when they're at home, depending on their workload. But I wouldn't see much of a difference.
Okay. And just lastly, I know that there's a little statement in regards to training.
Sure.
Has department heads or supervisors been privy to any training in regards to adopting a hybrid workplace leading up to the creation of this policy?
Sure, we actually have them ready to go. We were waiting to move forward with this, and we'll have multiple sessions on how to lead teams hybrid as well as going over the policy.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, Chairman Woodward?
Thank you, and Madam Chair. This is certainly something that's coming in the world. I can share an anecdotal story of a friend of mine who has a small business, has 12 employees, very much set in his ways. It's like, I worked in an office, everyone's going to work in an office. And then the first person left, then the second person left, and then half of them have left. And then he says, I might have to change because he can't get people to fill these roles. And I think this is a part of the way things have been doing. And as someone who's been working in some remote capacity for 20 years, it's like the transition during the pandemic was easy for me, but it was a jolt to the system. There's no question. And I love the thought that there's things you don't think about. It's not as simple as like, okay, so you're sitting in your cubicle doing policy research for something, and then that person doing the exact same work at a computer in a home office. Well, then there's worker comp implications. There's, all these other types of things because they are an employee of the organization. Therefore, we're also equally responsible for all those types of things, from IT, legal, insurance, all those types of things. That adds a level of complexity. And I know a lot of work has gone into kind of checking, going through all those boxes to make sure there's safe working conditions, to make certain that it doesn't interfere with other obligations. At the same time, I also understand that for some, there's an anxiety, like, okay, are we gonna get the same level of work and outcome? And I think there is a level of trust and responsibility that we have to put in the hands of managers and directors and department heads to ensure that the productivity and output of these departments, the services they need to provide, have to continue to be maintained, and it's going to require it's probably some different management styles. Because we wouldn't have everyone in the same place. But moving in this direction, I think, is the right thing to do. That being said, it is also, I think we're going to learn a lot. I think a lot of us are moving in this, formally in the structure and still fairly new, and so we're going to have to come back, and I think we should be open to reviewing and making modifications and learning from this, because I think that is a healthy way. And as the policymaking body, the governing body here in the county, I want to ensure, at least in the beginning stages, that we're being able to do this. And I did have an opportunity to talk to Deputy Lynch yesterday, and so I have an amendment, but if I may, can I talk about it before I move it? Because we might want to make changes to it, or you want me to move it and then I'll talk about it?
I would move it.
Okay, I'll move and we can make changes to it. So I'll move my amendment so I can talk about it.
All right, Chairman moves, Commissioner Lubes support.
So.
Commissioners, the amendment is uploaded already. So
Many of you know that I got back late yesterday, so this is a development in progress. But adding an amendment to this overall resolution, allowing moving this forward as is, and allowing a duration, and I recommend 18 months after the adoption of this resolution, of which time we can come back and review. It basically sets a point that we're going to come back and review, make any appropriate change. We can make changes before, we can extend beforehand at the end of that 18 period of time to come on, to be able to advance it to, for however long. And something like this, and I think this maybe applies to other policies outside the scope, it's maybe not a bad idea to have a cyclical review of policies going forth. So with a first be it further resolved clause says the hybrid policy will remain in effect for 18 months following the adoption of this resolution and may be extended by approval of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. That's the first part. And I think this is a little related to what Chair Nelson was talking about. I think it's important that we get some reports as the implementation. And now the frequency of that, to me, I'm not married to, but it was recommending a report no less than every 6 months. So in theory, we should get 3 reports over the period of time, and that last one coming about the time when we would, in likelihood, extend. But what should be contained in that? And I think if departments are supposed to, are implementing this, and there will be some variation, they probably should be submitting plans to HR. This is how we plan to implement this. And so, that these reports shall include but not be limited to, and I just listed 5 things that I thought, as I've talked to others, that it come up on a regular basis. Copies of all department-specific plans for implementing the hybrid work policy, evaluation of department function and performance and productivity, impact on employee recruitment and retainment, which is one of the driving forces that we're also implementing this, effect on department work culture, and then allowing any recommendations or suggestions to improve the hybrid work policy. I should probably add the word "the" in there. At least though, maybe it can include other things and other data, and as it aligns with other county organizational goals. I would call that a starting point. So is that
absolutely?
Thank you, Chairman. I know that you and I and April, even we have talked a lot about this language, and here's the thing, it's very clear that we are not returning to a workplace we left prior to the pandemic. And truly, as we do move forward into the future, hybrid work models, I think we're gonna see a lot more than we already are. And let's face it, we've been saying this, gosh, I'm almost 40, and I feel like I've been saying this my whole life, technology is the future, right? So with that being said, I also understand that adopting a work hybrid policy is much easier than creating an effective workplace. So with that in this language, I do think it is in the best interest that we do have some touch base points along the way, especially with this being something new that we're implementing. Let's face it, we're gonna learn a lot. I'm sure this is gonna be tweaked. I'm sure it's gonna be modified. But I definitely wanna emphasize that in no way is this as a means to micromanage or undermine departments. I think that it's a good practice, especially in this first 18 months of implementation, to have something within this resolution that does have that checkpoint to make sure that we still are maintaining an efficient, productive workflow across the county. So I do appreciate the collaboration on this amendment. So thank you both. Chairman?
Yeah, and I think related to that, maybe Deputy Lynch mentioned other counties are looking to continue. I mean, just given the size of our organization, I think they're doing this. I would expect smaller local governments and other entities looking to Oakland County to say, how are you doing it, and lifting it up so that they can replicate it. So I mean, I really do think this is a model. The framework of a model moving forward, and I think we're going to learn a lot over the next thing. And I think we should be open to recognizing, like, yeah, that's not working. We have to make some adjustments and tweaks to it, because I think this is the new normal, and I think we should to be open to the opportunities that it provides, especially if it means that we get the talent that we want in this county that we're struggling to recruit in some cases, especially if it means that we can provide service to the public in a better and more efficient way, that we lift employee morale to, help cyclically reinforce that, so. Good.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Joliet.
Yes, I see the future is obviously doing hybrid after my son's been interviewing and different things. Thankfully, he has a job, but it's been one of the negotiation factors. After reading the policy, in my past experience, there's a thing in here about a safe workplace, putting personal weapons. I don't understand the meaning of having something in there that can't be enforced.
Sure, it was just, again, we've been talking to risk management and trying to make sure we covered all of our bases, just making sure that everybody's in the safest working spot that they can. We're not encouraging anybody to come, we don't want them doing any business with like clients or anything at their home, but it's just an acknowledgement to make sure that they're in a safe working environment.
Because it can't be measured, or you can't go inspect their environment, so just a little.
I understand. It's just an acknowledgement to make sure. Yeah,
it's
the policy did not have it in there, so we have to have a workspace, I guess, if that makes sense.
I think this is it raises up one of the challenging aspects here, is like if they're working as an employee of the county in a space that's sanctioned by the county, that space that they're working falls under us.
Right.
So, I think the practicality of like going in and inspecting your home office and like making sure that plugs are, that's not likely to happen. However,
it is.
It's like, could it?
Right.
And if state laws might evolve to like, you have to have this minimum standard. The idea is not to have the public coming to people's neighborhood homes to sit down and do it. That's what makes what on one level is a very simple thing. Like, do the stuff that you would just do here or there. It's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I get some of the other wording. It's just in the past, my past experience in government, it's kind of pointless to put things in that can't be enforced or measured. One other comment, so you're recommending a 50% hybrid. I'd like to see that a little bit more than a recommendation. It's easier to give things than take things away. And does this open up, because it's department to department, does this open up any arena for grievances within unions?
Well, that's why we made it very fluid, because every department will be different. That's why I didn't specifically say how much you have to be here, because some departments they actually have more option to be at home because most of their stuff is at home. So it's just one of those things, but the grievances really that's why we kind of cleaned it up and made sure we had those parameters. We did have one of our main unions who's in more in the administrative function take a look at it. But that's why it's more on the flexible side, because what somebody needs at, at the clerk's office might be different than what somebody needs at the treasurer's office, which might be something different at WRC. So that's why we kept it pretty fluid.
Okay.
And had more on the parameters of how you interact with your employees and expectations that way.
Okay, I just want to make sure it doesn't open up from union, they get to stay home half the time.
No, we met with them, and that was part of the, that's another reason why we had to kind of let it go by department, because it just gets very complicated, because everybody is going to have different ways that they handle their business. So they understand that.
Okay.
Now, where it will get interesting, and just be honest, and where we're working through that and understand that is, as I mentioned before, you might have one person in one classification that can work from home and another one may not be able to work from home because they're not they're not producing, right? So there'll be some conversations and plans with that particular person. So there'll always be a reason why that,
Okay,
this
okay.
person can't work from home, but this person can. So we've made that very clear to departments, and we'll make that clear in the training that not one size fits all. We have actually two extremes that I hear. You've got your three, really. You've got those that do well with just a couple days or one day at home, others who don't do well at all at home, and others who actually don't turn off at home. So you can have all three of those different factors. So we've definitely made it very clear that there'll be a lot of concrete examples or concerns brought forward as quickly as possible so that we can address those. But do understand that one employee in one classification may be able to do that, but maybe not the same, or maybe one department does it, but another department has the same classifications and they're not allowing that. That's again why we try to make it as fluid as possible.
Okay.
But thank you, very good point.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. The hybrid work agreement that's within our packet, it is broken down in between non-exempt employees and exempt employees. And so historically, even hybrid work, working from home, usually was, in most cases, reserved for exempt employees because it was looked at as a perk.
Yes.
So now as we're offering it to all levels of employees, looking at the work schedule and a department manager managing the days of the week, because human nature, people are going to want Mondays or Fridays to work at home. And so in a union environment, of course, things are ranked in seniority and tenure. But in the regular work environment, how will we be able to protect ourselves from employees that are going to be wanting Mondays or Fridays, the whole department? How are managers going to differentiate or choose if we don't go by seniority with our regular employees?
Sure. I think at the end of the day, it'll work individually with each department to work through that. I think that most people want to be able to do this, so they work together to make sure that everybody can get what they need. And so the schedule is really just in mind to have some, so that we don't constantly have this kind of, okay, today you're working from home, tomorrow you're not. So far, so good, and especially those that I oversee, that they've all established who's in, who's not in, so that everybody has coverage and that everybody wins in that space. If we have a disagreement, we'll work together with that department to find out how we want to make sure that everybody's schedule is accommodated. But so far, that has not been, I have not seen that as an issue. No, and the other, it's important to make sure that we're monitoring our non-exempt, making sure they have a schedule, because they are hourly, and so they have to follow the same rules, and educating, making sure that they're taking their lunch break and all of that all of those pieces that go into all of that. So, and so far it's working well.
Okay.
But that's a very good question. Yeah. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working through as we move into a choose to versus have to, and so. We'll be constantly probably reevaluating, and so having changes into this will not be surprising to me as we work through what's working and what's not.
So this is fluid.
Yes, it has to be.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. April, from an equity standpoint, has there been any discussion in regards to what happens when an employee would like to adopt that hybrid work model, but they can't? A variety of different, barriers. I'll throw out some simpler, easier ones for conversation's sake. So what happens if they don't have internet? What happens if they don't have a secure internet? What happens if they don't have a fast internet speed, or maybe even a working environment within their home that they would be able to conduct work confidentially? And
So we actually have had that conversation as well, and part of our training will be to make sure that we identify or give a safe space for employees to come forward to say that they may not have the tools to do that, but still could be able to do that. So we haven't sure how we're going to work through that yet, but we do recognize that there could be some folks that do not have the capabilities because they don't have internet service or whatnot, so we'll have to work through those on a case-by-case scenario. But that is part of our training, is making sure that we assess equity and making sure that if there is a reason that somebody may not be able to have that access, why is that, and what does that look like?
Excellent, thank you. And just final question, I know that in one of the very first couple sentences within the hybrid work policy, it shares that the purpose of this hybrid work program is to help the county reduce real estate and energy costs. Have we sold any property? Are we anticipating selling property?
Sure, we're looking, remember, we are working right now with Plant Moran, what's called the work from home study, just to see about if we were to decrease the number of folks, like maybe shared cubicles or whatnot, could we reduce space? We have about 5 buildings right now that would do us better to not be online anymore. I'm not sure if we'll get to that, to be able to do that, but that is some of our goals, is to see if you relook at like what we call hotspots or hoteling for those folks that, depending on their job, if they can work from home a couple days a week, could reduce some spots, especially in those categories where people do the same exact job. There could be some opportunities for condensed spaces. So that was just one of the things that we're looking at and having this opportunity to do. So right now, Plant Moran's actually working through this building as we speak to kind of take a look at what all of those synergies might look like.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any further questions? Pam.
Could I just, for a point of clarification on the amendment, are these paragraphs going to be added as the second and third, or is one of them going to be replacing the first that references reporting?
I think it's.
Not even think about that.
I believe it's the
You can just be, for approves, blank, yeah. So yeah, make it a second and third.
Second, third? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then all the other stuff, yeah.
So I'm going to do the amendment first. Right. All right. Commissioners, is there any further discussion on Woodward's amendment number 1? Seeing none, let's do a prompt the vote for Woodward's amendment to this item.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries. Now back to this item. Is there any further discussion on this agenda item? Okay, see none. I do want to just share that I most certainly support a hybrid working model. As of today, there are a few things I would like to get clarified before our board meeting next week. So today, due to that, I will be voting no. However, I want to stress and emphasize I do support a hybrid working model, and I know this is the wave of the future. There's just some things I'd like to gain a little bit more clarification on. Outside of government, I definitely am a part of that action with a hybrid work model. Within government, there's some things I would like to get a little bit more clarification on in just regards to the efficiency and productivity component. So as this moment, I will be supporting no, but I am definitely hopeful that within the next week, I will gain some further additional information. So, Chairman.
May I suggest if we just place this on the regular agenda? I mean, it doesn't, I mean, we can just place it on, I mean, we can, inside of the consent, voting no automatically goes on the regular agenda. But we could, I mean, but we could also pass, if this happened to pass unanimously, we could put it on the regular agenda as well to achieve the same objective. It's just an option.
I appreciate that option. I'm going to move forward today with just a no vote, but definitely, most certainly, I appreciate the sentiment behind that. Commissioner Joliet.
And I echo your thoughts in that I completely support a hybrid work schedule. There is a little bit, government part of it is a little bit, I just need some more clarification on versus private, and also the time breakdown. But so I'm going to vote no at this time, but I do support it. I just need to get some more clarification on other things.
Will somebody let me know what those clarification points are?
Absolutely.
Okay.
At least I will.
Yeah.
Commissioner Joliet, we could definitely talk and communicate with you, April. Yes.
Right.
Most certainly.
Yes.
Most certainly. Commissioners, any further discussion on this item? Alrighty, seeing none, roll call, please.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lubes?
Yes.
Joliet?
No.
Woodward?
Yes.
Nelson?
No.
Madam Chair, you have 3 yeas and 2 nays.
3 yeas, 2 nays, motion carries. Thank you, Deputy Lynch.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we'll move on to item H, which is the Board of Commissioners appointments to Regional Convention Facility Authority Citizens Advisory Council. Commissioners, do we have a motion? A motion to reappoint. Motion by Commissioner Loops, support by Commissioner Joliet. I do believe, am I speaking on this one? There's nobody, right? Here. Okay. Commissioners, just as a point of reference, in our communication item that we discussed at the beginning, this appointment of Mavita Burris, I believe, was within that document. And I'm going to throw it over to Chairman. I do know that Mavita Burris has been a part of this advisory council for many years, and she is seeking reappointment.
Yeah.
So, Chairman?
Right. So that was the first thing. I thought this was the actual regional convention board, but this is the Citizen Advisory Council, which I think was created by statute. And I
Correct.
I don't remember. So I think this is like the Citizen Advisory on top of the board. So this is not the actual board appointment that makes the decision. And I know this appointee, well, and I think she's great. This topic, what was actually helpful, and I don't know who has been to TCF or Future Huntington in a while. A tremendous amount of renovations has happened at that facility. The disruption of the pandemic, it caused the auto show and a series of other things. There are very few facilities in this world that can actually handle what it takes to put on that show. It might not be a bad idea to have either have our citizen advisory as well as maybe members of the board or the executive director of the convention authority to come and give an update. This is like what we're doing, and maybe even have a tour of some of the things, because it's one thing to see the stuff, and there's some really great things, optically to be able to see, but it's the behind the scenes operation that I think has been really incredible for the region. So I saw it on the agenda when I was reviewing. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from them in a while. But their revenue comes largely through a tax on hotels, and I think there's some alcohol. Maybe it's no. I think it's the alcohol tax in the area, as well as hotel taxes in the areas that help support the operation of that facility.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman. And Commissioners, just as a reminder, her resume was also uploaded in the attached documents. Very highly qualified to continue on from my reading and perspective. And as Chairman said, what a wonderful individual. And I will be moving forward with supporting her reappointment. Commissioner Joliet.
Thank you for the point of clarification. When I first saw this item, for the public's education, I didn't realize that this was a state-driven statute. So we are required as a county to appoint somebody to this, correct?
I believe so.
I do believe so.
It goes back. So I remember back in Cobo days, and this comes back to my state legislative days, and there's another former state legislator who can help remind me when there was some restructure to that authority. Yeah.
And it's not a very active board, which I bring that up because it really doesn't come before us often.
Right.
This is a 4-year appointment.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I think it was 4 years ago when we had this come before us in the Lago Committee, I believe, when
I remember it being months and months of deliberation in the halls of Lansing at one time. The financials of the operation are in good position. The upgrades to the facility, there were management issues in the past that, at least seemingly from my vantage point, are good. There is another board that actually is like the decision making that hires the director or the executive director of the convention. My understanding, the Citizen Advisory Council was set up to be a clearinghouse for other issues that might come up in the. It can move from everything like, well, how does our region more participate in trade expedition or whatever. I think it was. To make certain that there was even greater citizen input, and it was, I think, part of a compromise of that legislation. But that's going back many, many years in my memory banks.
Excellent, good question.
But we should have, I mean, definitely have them come in and give an update about what's
We can do that.
happening.
I can reach out to LAGO staff and see if we can have them come before us, because it has been a couple years. So most certainly. So commissioners, any other further discussion on the reappointment of Mavita Burris? Seeing none, prompt the vote, please.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to item number I, which is Board of Commissioners Resolution Support for Human Trafficking, House Bills 4091, 4113, and 4214, 4215. And I do believe we have Commissioner Kowal, who will be joining us virtually to speak on behalf of this. Before we jump on over to Commissioner Kowal, do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Jackson, support by Commissioner Joliet. Good morning, Commissioner Kowal.
Sorry about that. I'm having issues with my camera. I think I've got it now. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to testify to this resolution today. These bills are very important. They are helping us continue down the multi-pronged approach to combat HT. And they cover 3 major areas, one being the traffickers, another being the victims, and another being training. It's making great strides in altering the judicial system. It's very hard for victims to even get them to testify against their abusers, but this will give them more tools in the courtroom to be able to arrive at convictions and of the traffickers and justice for these victims. It also alters the way we look at victims by removing the word prostitution from all the laws and referring to commercial sexual activity instead, because words really do matter. And since we passed the Safe Harbor law, we've continued to refine and come up with more laws that help the victims in the way that they can have rebuttable presumption. They have expungement measures now that these bills would provide for them, because it's not just the sexual activity. Often these victims are forced to commit other crimes while being under the thumb of these traffickers. And also, it's very important to expand training standards and the number of people that are trained to recognize it, because sometimes people might see it and not realize what's going on right under their nose. So having more people trained can only help the situation. And I just would urge everybody, and I thank Commissioner Jackson as well for chairing the HT task force. And together we introduced this resolution to hopefully bring some pressure on the folks in Lansing to take this legislation up, because it was introduced last year, February, I believe, and nothing has happened since. And anybody who's served in the legislature knows when you have an election year, when it gets, midway through July, the legislature is pretty much gone for most of the year, and then back here and there, and then you have lame duck. So your opportunities for passing legislation get kind of slim. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to call your state representatives, your senators, and perhaps reach out to the members of Judiciary to see if we can get this legislation taken up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, and I want to thank Commissioner Kowal for bringing this resolution before us as part of her legislative background in 2014 in Lansing, and just helping us as a county be an active participant in fighting this crime and looking at the redefinition of this crime and helping victims become survivors of this crime. These bills will help those efforts greatly. And so, again, I want to thank you. And I want to also thank our new prosecutor, Karen McDonald, because she has asserted initially that she's going to take a human approach to looking at laws. And one day we may have a human trafficking, specialty court, like we have a drug court, and we have juvenile courts, just to really help these people that get rescued or escape themselves from this plague. So I appreciate what you did by bringing forth, and I'm definitely in support. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, to echo Commissioner Jackson, but I also want to include you, Commissioner Jackson. Thank you, Commissioner Cole and Jackson both, for the work that each of you do, and Commissioner Jackson for leading the Human Trafficking Task Force. The work you do is very important, and Commissioner, I appreciate you presenting on this. Even though you aren't with us in person, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to hear from you virtually. So both, thank you, Commissioners. Any further?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, we'll move on to our last item of our regular agenda. It's item J, Parks and Recreation, other action for seasonal employee salary and incentive changes at Oakland County Parks. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Loops. I believe we've got our Parks and Rec Director, Chris Ward, so welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rounding up a small army of...
Absolutely. Why don't you guys go ahead and join the head of the table? We've got Commissioner McGilvery here as well, so welcome.
Come to the table.
Yeah, come to the table.
Are any of you lifeguards?
Right.
We're asking everyone from now on. Are you a lifeguard?
certified, yes. I thought if nothing else failed, I'd overwhelm you with numbers.
Well, welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate your consideration of this, especially on very short notice. And I know we're going to have testimony this morning, opportunity to address some of your questions, and perhaps come back again when you have your special meeting before the board. As all of you know, we have a wonderful park system in Oakland County, 6,700 acres, 14 parks, golf, campgrounds, water parks, ORV park, trail system, and all of those are wonderful things, but what makes it really a living, breathing park system that people can enjoy are the people. It's the people that work for our park system that make it a reality, and we are heavily dependent upon seasonal staff with turnover annually. And a hiring system and onboarding and recruiting that's an extraordinary effort. I just want to introduce this crew that's here with me. I've got Tom Hughes, who is our Chief of Golf Operations in our South District of the park system. I've got Matt Party, who runs our Red Oaks Park. Ryan Dinescu, I got that right, Ryan? Sure. Yep. Right. Ryan is our kind of our lifeguard guru, so he's going to be able. Thank you. I just renamed your title there. Okay. Mike Boyd runs Waterford Oaks Park. Jim Dunlevy is a legend a little bit in the park system. He is our chief of the North District for Oakland County Parks and works in campgrounds especially as well, and is the president of the Michigan Association of County Parks officials. So he makes me stand when I enter the room. And you know our chairman, Chairman McGilvery, and I don't know where Phil went off to. There's Phil is our chief, our manager of Parks Operations Administration. And Melissa, I don't know if she's still on there as well. So that's our team. I don't know if Stephanie's still here or not. She had to leave. She had to leave. Okay, so she works on our recruitment and retention efforts and organizational development. We have tried to get ahead of this issue, as we've discussed as a group in the past. We had a very difficult season last year at Oakland County Parks and Rec with the labor shortage situation that the entire nation is facing, which resulted in reduced operations all the way around, stretching our staff, especially our full-time staff, very thin. As it related to our water parks, the Waterford Oaks Wave Pool was closed down. Our Red Oaks Water Park had reduced hours, a reduced season. Some of the features were cut back upon. These guys can give you more information on that. Just really very difficult season overall with staffing. So we tried to get ahead of this, and as you recall, a couple months ago, we came before you and asked and appreciate your support for some compensation increases for the lifeguard position and also for some of our recreation programming staff. We've launched an unprecedented early effort on recruitment and retention. We've gotten more organized than ever before. I think we've had 4 or 5 job fairs already. We've got a couple more coming up that really helps expedite the hiring process. People can come in, they can interview, get offered a position on site. That's a contingent offer. They still have to go through the normal hiring process with HR, do the physical, get the background check and all of that. But it does kind of move things along quite a bit. We have done an enormous amount of advertising. We've done direct mail to pretty much the entire registered voter list of Pontiac, Madison Heights. We have advertised print and digital in 18 different newspapers in the county. With many of your help and support, we've gotten into school systems that we've never been in before, connected with teams, athletic teams and coaches. We have, really put forward quite an effort. In the last week or so, we have done kind of a check on where we're at. A little bit of a war room check, and we're running behind pace of where we normally are, especially with lifeguards. And if we don't improve our trajectory, there's going to be some very difficult choices to be made in the next month or so that will impact our water park operations especially. The second piece of this discussion here today is about transportation. As many of you know, we have issues in terms of proximity of our parks for all of our residents, and so transportation and transit accessibility in terms of being able to attract and make our parks available for all types of people to be able to work at our parks is an issue. We've done quite a bit of research in terms of rideshare programs, and we want to try to make that available as quick as possible. We've looked into Uber for Business, talked to HR. They've got some thoughts. We have some research to be brought to bear. All of this has to be done quite quickly. So, we'd have to work through Corp Council to get the contract done. There's some IRS issues with taxation that we have to work through as well. So that's the second resolve clause there. In terms of adding to the bonus, right now, we administratively had approved earlier in the year a $300 bonus for lifeguards, new lifeguards, to go through the training program and work 100 hours. That's right. Correct. Thank you. Okay. We had a little bit of discussion back and forth that caused some confusion, and I apologize for that. What we would like to have is a $500 bonus for both returning lifeguards and the new lifeguards at that $100 mark on top of what has already been approved. $100 mark, yes. So it would be $500 for both returning and the new. So essentially it'd be $800 bonus for new lifeguards and $500 for the returning. We'd also like your consideration, and that's the third resolve clause there, for some flexibility to continue to work with the administration to address incentives as the situation evolves, because it's a very difficult market. And so that is kind of the big picture of what is before you today. Gentlemen, do you have anything you want to add? These two guys here have been in the media quite a bit. They're available for autographs. They've been on TV news. So that's the overall picture. Happy to take any questions or concerns and address any issues commissioners might have.
Excellent. Thank you. Chairman Woodward.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and I have definitely noticed a outward-facing promotion of these jobs through social media, through print media, and a bunch of other things. I think that's great, and happening in a very tight market, job market, that some other jobs are paying, a lot more. Two questions specifically. It probably applies to all, but I'm going to zero on the lifeguards because, if inclement weather comes through, we get a terrible thunderstorm. Okay, I've agreed to do this. and now I don't get paid.
Right.
I mean, so I can go to Home Depot and get paid,
Right.
and guaranteed to get paid, and probably paid more. Now, I might want to work on my tan, and I prefer being a lifeguard, and would even accept less, but then weather comes through, and like we basically don't pay them because like the park's not operating. And so like, has there been any consideration on figuring, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if I got you, that maybe we should consider, at least particularly this season, like you're signing up for a tour of duty, and if the skies open up, you still get paid. And we'll find them something else to do.
It's definitely a fair question. As I understand the way we've operated in the past, we have not paid. That's correct, Tom?
Correct. So previously, we were never paid. Lifeguards go through a 24-hour training to become a lifeguard. So that $300 covers that time that they before would not get paid for.
Right.
In addition to that, now it's $500 over. And we set that 100 hours as a minimum because it's very attainable for any employee to reach that at the water park.
So I think this is.
I mean, it's really,
quite a lot of
especially if you're dealing with
discussion,
like, I know a high school swim, I mean, I actually was pitching him. I was like, he's in his, before college, like he would be perfect.
Yeah.
And would love to do it. And he actually asked, like, well, what happens when it rains?
Right.
And
I think it's a very fair point, and some sort of on-call pay or alternative work situation is a very good idea. Something we've started talking about in the last week or so.
Okay. I guess the other question is, like, so is our parks, I mean, zeroing again on the lifeguards, because I know this has been a chronic challenge that we've had. Is the Metro Park system and other, experiencing the same type of, are we is it just like, it's the.
Yes.
The attraction. I was wondering if it's like a location issue of where our parks are and where they have to get to, or is it just like across the board? Are we all sharing the same thing?
If you were to Google lifeguards, you're going to find a national crisis here. The $500 number actually was triggered because Huron-Clinton just offered this benefit, this exact benefit.
Oh, well, that's helpful to know.
Yeah, every local parks and rec department, aquatic centers having the same issue. As a matter of fact, some of the commissioners have been so helpful in helping us get into schools. We've been chased back out of the schools because they're trying to find lifeguards as well, and we're competing with them. So it's a big issue. It's a particularly challenging thing because you have to you have to find that right kid who will plan ahead enough to be trained, and then be willing to work a little bit down the road. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, trying to get on your schedule. Again, sorry for getting on your agenda so late, but we have to get them into the pipeline in May in order to get those parks open in June, essentially. So we got that lifeguard training set up in that May schedule, and it's not just the Red Cross training, they've also got a couple of weeks of lifeguard training ahead of them.
Well, yeah, Matt, you want to address?
I think part of what's happened too is because we didn't open, we're really struggling from the returning staff too. In the past, we'd have, maybe 30% come back, sometimes 50%, right? And now we're almost like starting, from the beginning. This is kind of where this year, I kind of look at this year as kind of like building for the future years. Where maybe we don't need to offer all these incentives, and hopefully maybe we can get to that point where we're back to, 50-30% returning instead of actually starting from nothing. And we spent a lot of money getting Waterford ready last year and getting the pool, because we have to make a decision. Like, in the next couple of weeks, do we move forward to get the pool ready? So we're gonna have to start, getting, working on the bottoms and the walls, and, start adding, water to the pool and making sure everything's in operation. And it was really disheartening last year when we got 11 lifeguards and we needed approximately 25. It worked out great for Red Oaks. We put them in a van and took them down to Red Oaks, and I think that saved them to be able to even operate at the level that they were at too. So we still offer that opportunity. And if anybody wants to work, like you were saying, even on a rainy day, there's always something for us to, come up with a plan for them to do. I know that, that we do that. A lot of them are really just happy it's raining and they don't have to work. But if they want to work, we always can find them work.
Excellent. First and foremost, I want to say I thank all of you for being so proactive. And Mr. Ward, it sounds like from what you've explained, the employee retention campaign that you've already started is pretty significant. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I find extreme value in our parks, as all of us do. As somebody who lives in Waterford and just going through the effects and impact of last year, it hit hard. I mean, it really, truly did. And so, not just with Waterford Oaks, but just Red Oaks and all of our parks, I want to do what we have control and can do to make sure that we don't fall back into closing and not being able to open our parks and our wave pools. So I commend the effort that all of you have put forth in being proactive so we can make sure that we keep our parks open and our water parks opened. So I do support this resolution, and I understand the urgency of it. So I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this forward. And again, I appreciate being proactive because summer's right around the corner, believe it or not. So thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. Really quickly, the gentleman next to Chris, your name again?
Tom Hughes.
Oh, Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes, so you're over golf course operations?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask, because, our conversation is really focusing on the water. What about the golf courses and young people being employed at golf courses? Are you having a problem finding folks?
Well, all of our parks, all our areas are having issues with getting staff, and but water parks, by far, the amount of staff we need there has the biggest impact, and the life-saving component with the lifeguards is really the issue.
Yeah,
we have golf courses, we're a little more fortunate. We have a lot more returning staff than other areas, but still also need the younger college kids, high school kids. We're always looking for them. There might be 2 or 3 kids versus 50,
Well,
but we still need them.
I wanted to make you aware of called Midnight Golf. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yes.
Have you? Okay, wonderful. Do those young people participate in golf courses in Oakland County as far as just partnering with that program?
No,
I would really love to see that.
Yeah, currently we don't. We did partner with some other programs, but through COVID, it all kind of fell off. But getting back to normal, we're looking for other opportunities to partner with to get the youth into golf.
Okay, I'm going to follow up and talk to you.
Absolutely, please.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Commissioner Juliet.
I totally see where you guys are at with the staffing issue, as we have heard, I think, for the last, since I've been here, all of the staffing issues, and yours being seasonal specific. Obviously, me being in Waterford and using the water park extensively over the last 20 years with my kids, it truly is a lifeline for some of those residents. And if they don't have it, the lucky residents get to go buy a membership at Lifetime or some other club. And the other ones, you've got these kids that was their only opportunity. And we have made exceptions for different departments within the county. Not exceptions, but we've recognized their staffing hardships and given raises, reclassifications, suggesting hybrid schedules. So I completely support this. I see the urgency. I see the need and how this is truly a unique department in itself. So.
Appreciate all your kind words. This is a kind of a unique department. It's kind of more of a service industry. And it has been a very difficult situation with the labor overall picture that all businesses, governments are dealing with. So overall, I guess I just would like to express our appreciation for the Commission's support throughout all of this and consideration of this proposal.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Chairman Woodward.
Yeah. So, this is estimated to be about $200,000 to figure out how to do it for this season. Like, where is that money coming from?
Well, all of our funding is, an enterprise fund, so it's all coming from the millage proceeds. We try to make each one of these amenities self-supporting to the extent possible. So we review on an annual basis the budgets for each one of these features, water parks, to see how we're performing. It may be with increased cost, we're not going to be able to reach it, but we'll review that on an annual basis. But I guess the short answer to your question, Commissioner, is it's the millage proceeds.
Yeah, the millage proceeds, okay.
So I'm not sure on the total cost. You know, it's going to be a little variable because it's going to depend on how many people we get in order to participate. So I think the $200,000 number on there is the third resolve clause, is that correct? And that is seeking wider authority to address incentives potentially down the road, is that correct?
It's in the first one, but is it down the road? I did classify for the duration of the fiscal year 2022.
Yeah.
For 22, not to exceed $200,000.
Right. So, yeah, the transportation and the $500 one, the $1,000 thing needs to be amended to 500. The third one is just seeking authority to be able to continue to address incentives if necessary. So for instance, if we offer the $500 incentive and we get to 100 hours and we're worried everybody's going to just leave us at that point, we might want to be able to go back to the administration, DMB, et cetera, and say, could we offer an incentive to retain the staff for the balance of the season? We don't know how many hours we're going to do because it's somewhat climate dependent.
Right.
So that's what that third $200,000 clause is. So, and the reason we don't have a budget amendment is that because parks employees, seasonal staff, so variable. We don't know how many staff we're going to have. We don't know how many people will be utilizing the transportation, the transit benefit. It's all brand new. We're hoping we're going to be able to recruit many more people. So that's the issue with that.
Yeah, and I realize that there's a lot of variables in this, and like, I mean, can we get to full staff capacity? If we could, let's say, an optimal level, if we can get to full staff capacity with everything and implementing all of this, do we have a general estimate of what the additional costs?
We don't. If you'd like a budget amendment or an estimate based on whether it's worst case scenario from a fiscal standpoint or best case scenario from a labor standpoint,
I think
we could get that for you prior to the next LAGO meeting. Yes.
I think that would be helpful just to understand. I mean, and I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I mean, I think taking whatever extraordinary steps we need to make sure that all these operate. I can't tell you. My daughter's put up with a lot of stuff so that I can keep doing this. She's like, the one thing we would expect of you is to keep the lazy river open. And I let them down.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Trust me, I feel that even more than you do.
Right, yes, no.
Yeah.
So to the extent that, yeah, we get a general, I mean, that and appropriate the funds, and I mean, I'm supportive of, I mean, definitely latitude. I mean, in terms of like, as these, I mean, incentives become, I mean, at least some sort of reporting, like this is what the Parks Board has authorized, and have confidence in the leadership of our, I mean, of our chair, and as well as the members of that board, I mean, to come forward. I think we're gonna have to get very innovative, and we might have to push the number up even more to, I mean, to get it, but like setting the mark, we've got to pay more than others to get them. I want our Oakland County Parks to run.
We appreciate that, and we feel, especially with the increased millage, a responsibility to make sure all of our facilities are fully open.
Myself as well.
And, I think especially with the expectation of the COVID restrictions pulling back, that people want to be able to come and enjoy all of our facilities, so. We're going to do everything we can, and we appreciate your support to give us the tools to go out and do the job.
Excellent.
Okay, so,
I just want to get clarification. I know that, Mr. Ward, one of the things briefly that was spoken in the beginning was, do we need to make an amendment on any numbers?
Yes, I think there is one clause there that refers to a $1,000 benefit for working 100 hours.
So it's the first, be it further resolve clause.
Yes, it should be $500.
So be it further resolved that the Oakland County Board of Commissioners authorizes the payment of bonuses up to $1,000 for lifeguard positions. We're striking out $1,000 and replacing it with $500. So it will, so that it would read, be it further resolved that the Oakland County Board of Commissioners authorizes the payment of bonuses up to $500 for lifeguard positions payable at the end of the season for those that complete at least 100 hours of service by the end of the 2022 fiscal year. Is that the correction?
Yep.
Okay. Chairman?
I mean, that,
Do we need to
Well, yeah,
go through the,
I mean, we
Motion
can
of
amend it
that
now.
amendment?
Is it to kind of make it less costly to do this? I mean, I guess my question, this is what I don't know, and I guess I'm turning to all of you. If it stayed at $1,000, are we more likely to hit our goal? Correct. Than if we are at $500?
Well, in our internal discussion, and this is part of the confusion, and we've been back and forth on this. So the issue really comes down to the issue you brought up, Mr. Chairman, about the climate and closing. And so if you reach 100 hours, will everybody leave? And so I think the idea that might be best, if we're going to offer a $1,000 benefit, would be to encourage people to work the whole season for 1,000. So the whole combination of what you've got there
Gets us to.
would be 500, if we've got the authority to go back administratively and get another $500 bonus to work the rest of the season, if we're getting close to 100 hours.
Got it.
Because if, I think the danger there is if you've got a $1,000 bonus to work 100 hours, we already increased the wages to $16 an hour, and there's $1 an hour bonus in there as well for all the water park employees. You're getting into like $27 an hour range to work at a water park, which we want them staffed, but we don't want to get to, mid-July and then everybody leave and have to close down. So I think we tried to find the best solution we could.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
excellent. Commissioner Lutz?
I think that was my question about the 1,000 or 500 versus an amendment. But if you have the administrative ability to return to that 500 and then add on to it after 100 hours, that would satisfy this.
Yeah.
So
If you're comfortable with that, I think that
I would
is
be comfortable.
our sweet spot where we landed after quite a bit of discussion.
Okay.
Do you wanna work on the, you just need to change the number here, or you wanna work on the language and bring it to
If
the
you
logic?
change the number to 500 and
Right
you
now.
leave the administrative authority in that resolve clause, we'll be able to handle this.
Okay, so with that being said, do we have a motion to amend the first, be it for the resolve clause to strike out $1,000 and insert 500? So motion by Commissioner Lutz, support by Commissioner Joliet. Commissioners?
And we're adding the administrative clause in there
Well,
for the
that's
additional
that's
money.
captured in the now,
I
therefore.
don't think it's in this specific.
It's not in that paragraph.
Resolve clause.
Further
It's-
down.
Oh,
So
okay,
now.
thank you.
So is there another amendment?
I think let's take care of that in a minute.
So any further discussion on the, be it further resolve clause, strike out a 500, striking out 1,000, inserting the 500? Is there any further discussion? All right, let's do prompt the vote on the amendment. So just for, yes, Commissioners, it should say under the motion amend. It's a nice new change we've got finally, great.
Madam Chair, on the amendment, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Now, Commissioners, back to the initial item.
So, I mean, I think.
As amended.
As amended. So I think it would be helpful to get kind of an estimate, like the high water mark, like fully fund this thing, everything is running smoothly, this is what, it'll cost to be able to do, and get some sort of amendment that we can include in that. So with that, and I'm 100% supportive of moving forward with this. If I can move to postpone this to our next special LAGO meeting before our board meeting.
Okay.
To take that up. So we can
Chairman
we'll get a
Woodward
budget
makes-
amendment, and I think that's all we really need.
So-
If I could, just to clarify, do you want a estimate or do you want a budget amendment?
I mean,
We could amend, say, our salaries line item to give you the high end of it, or we can give you an estimate of range. And then.
What do people prefer?
We give you the estimate of the range, and then we find out what it really costs us, and then amend our budget towards the end.
get a point of clarification? There's a lot of deer in headlight looks in the room right now. So before we proceed, though, I believe Mr. Ward, I don't know if it was starting with you, Chairman.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a question of like, do we want a budget amendment, or
So postpone
to with the LAGO meeting that we need to have before the board meeting?
Okay,
next
for the
week,
purpose of.
taking this up.
But what are we? The purpose? Why are we postponing? That's what I need clarification on.
Well, if I understand correctly, it's either to have a budget amendment or an estimate of cost. So my only question is, because you have such a wide variance in what this might cost, do you want that in the form of an estimate that we would then later, when we know have hard costs, amend the parks budget probably towards the end of your fiscal year? Or do you want to have a worst case scenario from a fiscal standpoint budget amendment that we would probably then true up the budget, that would probably end up looking from a fiscal standpoint, we would end up probably having more, less cost in our budget, because it would be a worst case scenario. So it's either or. We're happy to do. It's a preference issue.
What do people prefer?
Commissioners, how would Commissioner Loops now?
But what we have in here is it's not to exceed 200,000. So what you're looking for are the details.
Sorry, this is confusing.
This is
Not
why
to
we
exceed
need- this is why we need the
2,000
estimate.
is, that's the fail-safe, Commissioner.
That's an additional.
If these things that we're asking for don't succeed, that's the fail-safe to be able to go back and, let's say if with the $500 bonus, we get to mid-July, our 100 hours are coming up, and these guys come to me and they say, everybody's gonna leave, and we need another bonus to keep them until Labor Day, then we need, thanks for your ideas.
I would like to move forward and approve it today, because I think time is of the essence for you to begin hiring.
I appreciate that. I mean, we can't do anything till your board meets anyways. So, I mean, if you've got a special LAGO meeting, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we already had a plan to have a special LAGO meeting before the board meeting. So
So
the
let's-
idea with this would,
Chairman, let's take a vote, right? I mean, if you're making a motion to postpone.
The reason I'm making it postpone, because I want everyone to know kind of what
It's
we're
not
looking
on
at,
the table
the
yet.
full cost of what this is. So you've got the $200,000, that's one thing. The $1,000, so I mean, assuming, let's say all 60 lifeguards do 100 hours, that's $1,000 for each of us, that's $60,000, right? I mean, for 100 hours, that, not including using the $200,000.
So we went to 500 from the 1,000.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
so yes, that would be
Right.
$30,000. And then there's the additional $1 hour bonus for all water park staff of hours that work between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Right.
So these each have a cost implication that I just think it's prudent for all of us to actually know what is the total cost that we're looking at.
So Chairman, the one question that I have though is it's very clear that given that these are end of summer season bonuses, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not going to be able to get a specific
You'll be able to get a high water mark though.
amount,
You'll be able to
right?
get a maximum, that's what Mr. Ward has been saying, is that you can, I mean, if you fill all the positions that we're looking to fill and everything, this is the high water mark of what all of this would cost. From a fiscally responsible perspective, I think we should know what that is. I don't think that, I mean, again, this seems reasonable. I guess, what is it going to cost us? I mean, at the worst, we keep saying worst case scenario. I would call it more the optimal scenario.
It's all in how you're looking at it.
It is like, optimally, we want to fill all these positions. What is that going to cost? What I heard is that this isn't a $200,000, this is likely more than $200,000.
Oh, absolutely, altogether, absolutely.
So I think that, I think either, and I think what Mr. Ward was asking, do we want an estimate of what we think it's going to be? Or do we want, we fill every one of these positions and we do all these things and use all these resources, what is that going to cost? Yeah. And I just think that we want to know what that is.
So Chairman, I just want to make sure, because I'm hearing, I just want to make sure to ensure that this will go to our LAGO special meeting before the board meeting next week. I hear the urgency, and I don't want a chance that this wouldn't hit our April board meeting, given that there's one board meeting in April.
No,
So
that's exactly what I said.
this
though.
will be moving forward
Put
to
it on
our
the
LAGO meeting
Yep, that's what, yep.
that we have planned special
With the
prior to
goal
our
of
board
with
meeting
the
next
plan of
week,
taking this up to the
Thursday.
board meeting, correct.
So
With
there's,
this additional information.
there shouldn't be anything that gets in the way of that. I want to be sure, because we have one board meeting in April, and I understand the urgency and the importance of this information. I hear what you're sharing with the dollar amounts, but I also just want to make it clear that with that information added as we lead into next week, we will have this as an agenda item during our special LAGO meeting.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, I think the only question we were down to was, would you like a informational estimation of the total cost, maybe with some variability based on usage, or do you want a full usage estimation that will get you a budget amendment that will likely lead to Parks budget coming in at the end of the fiscal year lower than estimated expenditure? So
The budget amendment would be for filling every one of these positions.
Yes.
And as much as that we're going to try to hit that, I'll contribute an extra $100 to Parks if we can make it.
Okay.
Got that? From the general fund,
No,
right?
right into your general fund. Like,
Right.
you can spend it any way you want.
Per position?
Personally for me.
Did I
No,
get-
Mr. Moore, thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Joliet.
Quick question.
Mhm.
Does it affect you if we wait until next Thursday?
No, because, we'll need full board action either way. Just, the clarification of whether you want an estimation or a budget amendment
But
is
it
really the
doesn't
only thing.
affect your hiring or doing, it doesn't stop any?
No,
does it?
we can't
Okay,
take any
okay.
action any differently until you give us a clear direction on what
But yeah,
you
but if we
support.
gave you a clear direction today, would that make it?
We need the full board to take action.
Okay, gotcha, okay. Excellent.
Okay, so with that being said,
What do people want? Do people want the estimation or a budget amendment? When I say people want, like you.
so prior to the meeting next week that this will be on.
Yeah, that's what he's asking. Which one do we want? Do you want a budget amendment that would show optimal hiring, everything? This is like worst case scenario. This is what's going to cost, or a more an estimate of what they think it's going to be.
Would an estimate be a more fair assessment of this? What would be the most accurate picture as we move forward?
If you're asking me, I think given the wide variance, it was probably a more accurate picture to give you an estimate, because you might get some huge number, especially when you consider the transit benefit. And we have about 650 to 700 seasonal positions. If you factored in, say, $300 transit benefit you're going to get an enormous figure. It's probably not likely we're going to get that much usage out of it. So it might be better to consider it more like a pilot, see what kind of usage we get out of one season, and then factor it into the budget for the following season.
Thank you.
We'll be happy to do whatever the commission would like, though.
So commissioners, how would we like to proceed with
Estimate
discussion.
or budget amendment?
estimate?
Estimate's fine.
Or budget amendment?
Estimate's fine.
Estimate's fine.
Estimate.
So, you know what, before we have this discussion, can we move forward with the motion to postpone? And then we can carry on this conversation just from a policy process perspective. So Chairman Woodward moved to postpone. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jackson. Any further discussion on the postponement of this item? And again, this will be postponed to our special LAGO meeting scheduled next week prior to our board meeting. Seeing none, prompt the vote, please.
Okay, motion to postpone. Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries. Now to go back to our initial conversation in regards to an estimate versus a complete, right? Was that complete budget amendment?
Estimate.
Estimate. So
Estimate.
everyone on this committee, we're moving forward with anticipating having an estimate added within this resolution as it hits our agenda next week. Is that clear, safe to say?
Sure.
Okay.
Write a memo.
Alrighty, well, I greatly appreciate Mr. Ward, and wait a minute, I wrote everyone's name down because I want to thank each and every one of you. So Mr. Ward, we've got Tom, Matt, Ryan, Mike, Jim, Commissioner McGilvery, our chairman of the Parks and Rec Commission, and I know that Melissa and Stephanie were here, but now they're not, but we thank all of you for the hard work that you do. And Phil. Thank you, Phil.
The money man is.
Yes, Commissioner
You
McGilvery.
need the help of all the commissioners to let your constituents know that we're looking for people, both lifeguards with our things, so get the word out as much as you can. If you got a Facebook page, put it on there, because we're just not getting the applications. Right now, we have around 25.
We got a few more the other day, so yeah, we're
We need
inching
a
up.
total of 95, so we're a long way from our target. So.
Excellent. I appreciate you sharing that additional information, and commissioners, spread the word.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Commissioner McGilvery. And again, thank you, everyone, for joining us with this item this morning, this afternoon, almost. Lastly, we'll move on now to our last public comment. As a reminder, this public comment, again, and individuals have 3 minutes to speak on not just items on the agenda, but any items. So at this time, I'd like to open up public comment. Please make your way to the head of the table, state your name and community in which you reside in.
I didn't know if you were going to make any public comment on this one. I don't know that we have any.
Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon.
I have no idea at this point, honestly. Thank you. I appreciate you actually voting down a couple of things this time, because this board has gone crazy spending money. It isn't even clear to all the commissioners that we actually had a deficit in 2021 once the auditors were done, and underestimated revenue by 64 million. We have a slight structural, I don't think they use the word deficit, but it means the same. So the fact that we're spending massive amounts of money for programs that we don't need and paying people to sit at home, which is actually the root cause of why you're having trouble getting people to go to work. My first job was a lifeguard. I got paid $1 an hour. The Red Cross trained me. I taught people how to swim. I didn't feel offended if it rained. So what? It was a summer job. That's what it's intended to be. So the fact that we're trying to make a lifeguard as a career and pay them 20-something an hour base is absolutely ludicrous. You're creating expectations that don't exist. Even more concerning is the fact that the group that came here for literacy, they got rejected by United Way for the mental health decision maker of this county. That is very concerning to me, and especially because the citizens had to actually do a Freedom of Information Act request, which, by the way, took months in spite of the procedures saying it should only take 5 or 10 days. This is offensive, and I think all of the commissioners would need to look at this data to really see what's really going on. It's very concerning. So as a citizen, I am absolutely offended when I see documents that get modified by Mr. Chairman here. In fact, at the March 15th LAGO meeting, this was called Item 9A, All Parks and Recreation, which was attended by Mr. Ward and a Sean Carlson, I'm not sure who he is, and it said McGilvery presented, but in fact, Mr. Woodward changed the entire resolution. Was not distributed, and you can look at me however you like, but that's the truth, and you know that, and it's on video, so at least that one was recorded. The ad hoc senior meeting, very concerning. I attended in person, thank goodness. You know, they brought in the chief of staff from Wayne County to run this, and he did this old presentation. His PowerPoint was the only item. It was to change it from a public viewed meeting to we're going to move it all to study groups, and there are 3 study groups that were being created to determine everything done with the senior money. Someone even thought we should create a new department for it. Absolutely ludicrous. Veterans Department's ridiculous already. too much is being wasted on advertising and self-serving motives, and they're not paying attention to the citizens. And I appreciate that I see some people are starting to pay attention. We're not crazy. We're seeing things that are not okay, and if you shift from one meeting to the next and don't even know everything's been modified, there's something wrong with this picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Good mid-morning.
Hi, Tasha Shergan from Clarkston. I feel the pain of trying to find employees. I owned a business for almost 20 years before COVID. It was difficult then. My husband owns a business now. It's difficult now. But I don't think paying a teenager $27 an hour seems in balance. I also think that maybe you can look at giving a bonus at the end of the season and not just once they hit 100 hours. Make them work for the entire summer before you reward them. The other thing is you guys are making the sheriffs come in every 3 months and request more budgeting. So I don't see why the Parks Department should be any different. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Beth Felix from Clarkston. Hello, Commissioners. Earlier, Mr. Woodward had said he's proud of the resources we have in Oakland County in educating on genocide. We have the Holocaust Center and other smaller centers and resources the county provides. This is all very good. I suggest we honor those that needlessly lost their lives to COVID-19 in this county due to our hospitals being incentivized to kill your loved one, as Attorney Thomas Lorenz has said. He is an attorney fighting on behalf of the American people with whistleblower documentation. He has also stated, our hospitals were paid by the federal government when they tested your loved one, when they admitted your loved one, when they put your loved one on remdesivir, and when they put your loved one on a ventilator, and when your loved one died, and they were paid a lot. Again, I think our county should recognize these individuals that have lost their lives to these government protocols, death traps, as I like to call them. And as Dr. Peter McCullough, who received his epidemiology degree from U of M and has had major roles at hospitals in this county, said 85% of these deaths could have been prevented with early and effective treatment. Each patient I encountered in this situation, I sat by their bedside and I held their hand and I prayed silently. My prayer is every day that truth will be revealed and those responsible will be held accountable. And I would just like to make one more comment on Commissioner Jackson praising Karen McDonald. My brother's case was one of her last cases before stepping down to run as a prosecutor. His ex-wife was charged with third-degree child abuse and a misdemeanor of domestic violence. She ruled for my nieces and nephews to go back 50-50 to their mother for the abuse to happen again. I beg to differ her being competent to address the abuses of human trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Ross Parenko, Novi. You had a recommendation for a 50% on the hybrid, but how do you get 50% of 5 days? It seems it has to be 40% or 60%, unless you have some sort of system where you work 3 days 1 week and then 2 days the next week. But those are other issues I think you might want to iron out with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee? Seeing none, I will close our last public comment. Commissioners, seeing there's no further business to come before us at this moment, we adjourn at 11:43 a.m. Thank you, everyone.